Happy New Year to my fire signs Aries, Leo and Sagittarius. Welcome to the Capricorn new moon. You'll find the timestamps for your rising signs listed below. Hello Aries Rising, Happy New Year and welcome to your horoscope for the Capricorn new moon happening on January the 11th at 10:58 p.m. if you're in the Southern Hemisphere with me. So I hope that the journey into 2024 was a gentle one for you. It's the Gregorian calendar, so if you're looking for other moments of reflection and starting, then you can look to February the 10th. That's when the Chinese celebrate the Lunar New Year. And also in April when there's the new moon in Aries, that's the zodiacal new year. That's sort of when I sort of tend to think that things begin afresh around the zodiac. However, that starts with a massive eclipse in your first house, of which we'll get to in time. But let's pare it back a little bit. Let's relax and let's focus on the sentiment of Capricorn. Let's have a conversation about what we know about that sign too. So Capricorn, like you, is a fixed sign. Sorry, you're a cardinal sign. How dare you? How dare I? I'm actually a Capricorn sun, so forgive me. But cardinal signs will initiate the weather. They will start things off. For you, you do that with your beautiful match and your guiding light Mars. For Capricorn, there's a sort of stoicism into the grounded reality of life. With Saturn as their guide, there is kind of a container, a boundary, and a sort of rule book to life that they stick by. And that can be for good or for bad. Sometimes Capricorn can work and work and work and work and work so much, and it can be read as something of like an addiction to success or to growth or to power. In other ways, we really must remember that Capricorn often is the sign that is working so much because there's limitation to their self-identity, the access to who they are and their worth as a human being is so laden with these cues that they must work in order to prove themselves. Or if they don't work, if they stop working, they're worth nothing. And it's a beautiful, tender, gentle, tender-bellied shadow side of Capricorn that would probably be really good for us all to kind of ruminate on right now. You might have Capricorn placements on your birth chart and you can probably identify with that idea. I'm talking about this because Chiron obviously is in Aries still in your first house, and we're going into a pretty heavy 6 months of aspect after aspect after aspect. The dragon will be making an exact conjunction with Chiron, gobbling up Chiron, urging us to go inward, to look at those unconscious wounds that we're bearing, those wounds of self-identity, of pride, of self-respect. All of those things are coming up to play this year. And so I guess it was important for me to lead this horoscope with a bit of a tender reading about Capricorn, because it's fun to like bitch and moan about each of the other signs. I love doing that. In fact, I was thinking maybe for Halloween this year, I might like give like a real like nasty reading for each of you and tell you about your worst qualities rather than all of your good qualities. But we'll see. We'll see how I go. Actually, maybe not this year. It's too fraught. For you on your birth chart, well, another thing to probably say as well, Aries Rising, is that there's that division and separation sometimes with astrological language, and that's cool, that's fun, it's cute, it's funny. We must remember that every single sign is written on our birth chart. We have every single sign in us, moving through us. It shows up in different ways, and we might not have planets in every single sign, but that doesn't mean that they don't color our lives. We are everything. And perhaps in this moment of possibly feeling quite alone, I do look at this wound being revealed in Aries. It's quite solitary, and probably something that Capricorn can relate to as well, that solitary feeling. Capricorn on your birth chart is up in your 10th house of your most public self. So it's your career, your legacy, all of those things. So when I look at this, you can sort of sew in some of those shadow sides, those softer spots of the definition of Capricorn. You can probably relate it to yourself quite directly. There might be somewhere in there moments with the work that if you feel that you stop, that you're kind of not really worth much, that you must continue. And if you're feeling uninspired, or if you're feeling quite vulnerable and not able to continue the work to work in ways that you have before, that could throw you off kilter. That could be really destabilizing. But let's talk about it. Let's talk about this new moon for its purpose, which is a night to set intentions, to be really direct with what you wish to achieve publicly, professionally, in your career. What do you wish that side of your life to look like moving forward? That could be from the new moon until the full moon in Capricorn in 6 months from now in June. It could be for the year until we meet the next new moon, or it could just be from now on. No pressure of time, but think about your public-facing self. If you were to be remembered, which I'm sure that you will be fondly, fondly, fondly remembered in many years to come, when it's all said and done. But we all think about that sometimes. Like, I wonder if people will remember. What will they remember about me? It's kind of none of our business, but if you were to imagine and to fantasize, then that's what you can work with when you're setting your intentions for your public-facing self moving forward. You've got some support in there too at this new moon, because Mars has entered Capricorn at 5 degrees and is forming a very supportive trine with Jupiter at 5 degrees in Taurus. So Mars is your planet. You know what to do with Mars. Mars in Capricorn's pretty healthy. There's bravery here. There's confidence here. And there's a magnification from Jupiter in Taurus in your second house of your money, your values. So this part of the astrology is urging you to have that conversation again, Aries Rising. What do I value? Where are my resources? How do I develop them? How much do I need? You'll probably find it's less than you thought. I don't live on very much. I'm very cheap to run, and I've always been that way, and I'm rapidly becoming more and more proud of that. I do think about the future sometimes, and I do think about making preparations for the years to come, and that's something that perhaps I didn't think about so much when I was younger. But there's a time and a place for everything. You reach certain marks in your life, and these things start to occur to you. So perhaps at this new moon in Capricorn, you can think, okay, so is my public-facing self and my career, is that even related to my resources? Because I do all of this work and it's wildly successful and I'm really hard working and I devote myself to it. It's not very lucrative. That could be one thought that you have, and it may be up to you to think, well, does that matter? I personally don't think that it does. If you find ways that you can resource yourself, and you're pretty hard worker yourself, Aries Rising, so you'll find the income stream. But think about that 10th house moment. And at a time like this, when you know that there's so much pain and there's so many folks that just need some love and some guidance and some support and a sense of community, if those words you can relate to your 10th house, then, go further, go with it. It doesn't have to be, I don't wish for you to feel any sort of sense of failure at this time, Aries Rising, even though I know that that's quite tempting at times. I'm looking at this 10 to spot with Chiron in the first house, They're actually being supported at the moment by Venus. Venus is being very sweet. Venus is over in Sagittarius at 15 degrees, and shining a beautiful light down to Chiron at 15 degrees. Venus loves art and creativity, the grand gesture. Venus loves access to pleasure. In Sagittarius, in your 9th house of your philosophical leanings and your ability to expand your mind, there's a trip that's going on here. There's a beautiful moment. As we move further into this year, there's going to be many aspects with Chiron in your 1st house, and we know that that dragon is all eyes on you. We know that there are wounds that we are going to heal. We're going to excavate. We're going to get to the root of it. These things take time. By mid-year, Mars will have met up with Chiron and the dragon, and that's good because that's good for you because Mars knows what to do with you. Be brave. You can keep your chin up. That's kind of, yeah. Keep your chin up. I love that phrase. I can't remember when I first heard it, but whenever I hear it said, I just feel the sincerity, you know? It's a really nice thing to wear with you. If ever things get difficult over the coming months, Aries Rising, you just remember to keep your chin up. You're doing the right thing. And there's definitely opportunities to work on it too. The planet Pluto is just about to leave Capricorn and enter Aquarius. So 10 days after this new moon, on the 22nd, I think it is, no, 21st here in Australia, Pluto will enter into Aquarius after its long journey through Capricorn since 2008, slowly plodding through, destroying everything that it touches in order to grow again. And this year in 2024, Pluto will be in Aquarius until September. Then we'll move back into Capricorn to that final degree at 29 degrees, which is probably, some say, the most pivotal degree of any sign is the 29th degree. That's a major final crescendo, final lesson. And as a culture, we'll never experience Pluto in Capricorn ever again. We've got to reacclimatize to what Pluto in Aquarius could mean. And if Pluto has that power, and on your birth chart, Aries Rising, Aquarius is the 11th house of your sense of humanity and friendship and belonging. Power to the people, man. If that's what you're working towards, keep going, but maybe every now and again take a bit of a rest stop. And probably, I'd gently say, Aries Rising, that 2024 specifically, there might be some more tender spots than usual, and it's okay to take a little moment. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to ask for support and encouragement. Look for encouragement in this life, Aries Rising. Be around people that have your best interests at heart, that are invested and engaged in your well-being and what you're up to, what you're creating, that marvel at the beauty of that. We'll get to this 2nd house. We'll work on it. On the 24th of January, Uranus, the rebel in your 2nd house, is going to station direct. So there's actually a bit of a time later in the year when Jupiter, the one that expands and brings hope and optimism and good fortune, will conjoin, which means it'll be in exactly the same point of the sky, the universe, as Uranus. That'll happen later this year too. So think about that 2nd house. Think about your resourcefulness. It's on the way. It's on the way this year. I'm going to get you some tarot, Aries Rising. So much that we're living through and doing our best to deal with, and so many opportunities for growth, and so much pressure of underperforming and so much fear of running out of time. Keep your chin up. And if you need to be a slacker, be a slacker. There's someone around you that's not going anywhere, and they've been with you for a while, and when it comes to this growth, when it comes to this kind of thought of, okay, so what am I gonna leave behind, or like what am I, churning at the bit for? There's someone here that knows what you see. They see what you see, and they're not going anywhere. They're waiting for you to be ready to get stuck into it. Because what I see for you, Aries Rising, is possibly a lot of hard work once the healing has commenced, or once the healing emerges. You can't ignore this any longer, Aries Rising. This Chiron, this wounding in the first house, the house of the soul, the self, is going to be tended to. And you can't be expected to, razzle dazzle, get back on it when you've got no petrol left in the tank. And this individual, this Knight of Pentacles right here, they kind of know that, but they're not going anywhere. They've actually got a really strong back and a lot of patience, and they're going to wait for you to feel better, and they're probably going to really encourage you to get cracking. The Seven of Pentacles is a card that sort of speaks to like having to wait, and the frustration of having to wait, which you can probably maybe identify with from time to time. I think about my plants sometimes when I think about that moment of like, right, go. And maybe a little bit of like, oh, hurry up. But then after a while, you sort of lose that, and you sort of find yourself in rhythm with the plants around you, and you like, yeah, everything takes its time. I've done everything that I need to do. I've turned the soil, I've planted this, fed, watered, lit, beautiful. And now I wait. Seven of Pentacles doesn't mind waiting. Well, maybe they do mind waiting a little bit from time to time. The Knight of Pentacles does not mind waiting. So live your life now, not projecting so far into the future or dragging yourself to pieces because you're not where you thought you should be at this age. Forget it. Age is irrelevant. You'll get to where you need to go when you get there. Doesn't matter. That's it, Aries Rising. Happy new moon. Much love to you. Much love. You might want to throw a goat in the comments for me in honor of Capricorn. That would be awesome. You can subscribe to my channel and my horoscopes over at buymeacoffee.com/UmaRuby. For 10 Australian dollars a month, you can support my work if you can afford it. It's okay if you can't, though. It's not going to stop me. You can also throw some money in the tip jar over there too. You can head to UmaRuby, my website, and I'll draw your birth chart. They look something like this, and I'll read it to you. So you can make your appointment, book a spirit reading at umaruby.com. If I have read for you before and you'd like another one this year, then head over to UmaRuby and you can pick a femme, a love, a truth, a growth, or a magic reading. And I'll look at the transits specifically in relationship to your birth chart and how they're going to play out over the next months. And we'll also get really stuck into the tarot too, and you can answer your questions, whatever they may be. I'll speak to you in 2 weeks and we'll talk about the full moon in Leo. I look forward to it, Aries Rising. Take care of yourself and wild healing this year. Can't wait. Looking forward to it. Solid 6 months. Get it. Hello Leo Rising, Happy New Year. Welcome to your horoscope for the Capricorn new moon happening on January the 11th at 10:58 p.m. if you're in the southern hemisphere with me. So I hope that your journey into this next calendar year was a gentle one, was a fruitful one. I hope that you're not feeling too pressured to get stuck into it straight away, although the astrology might say otherwise. I hope that you can maybe think about the lunar calendar as well. The Chinese celebrate their Lunar New Year on the February the 10th of this year. And then also there is the zodiacal new year that happens at the Aries new moon, although this time it's an eclipse, so that might be a bit more hectic than we'd like. There's so much that's packed into January that I almost feel like I'm sort of trailing off into a rabbit hole as I try and give these horoscopes, but I'm going to try and stay focused. So let's think about Capricorn. Let's think about the sort of work ethic of that sign. Let's think about the kind of initiation into reality that sign can represent, the nuts and bolts of hard work and the physical world around us too. Rather than something so maybe etheric or emotional, it's like sky is blue, grass is green, blood is red, this is real. That's what Capricorn's really good at. Sometimes their detriment too, there can be a sort of like hyper-realist kind of feeling there. You won't believe me, but I'm a Capricorn sun. It's my birthday 5 days after this new moon, and that is definitely part of me. There's also something that's sort of related to the work ethic being a shield, because they sometimes can hide behind the work because that's their sense of value, that's their sense of worth. And without working and showing the evidence of their worth, they kind of have a little bit of a tricky time handling a sense of self. There's lots of sensitivity to Capricorn that some folks might not really register. You will, Leo, because you see yourself in the eyes of the other at all times. You're here to show us the way and to show us to be proud of our sort of multifaceted nature, the colour of our diamond. But on your birth chart, Leo Rising, Capricorn rules the 6th house, which is definitely got a lot to do with repetition and grind, hard work. So that's a nice relationship there. In Hellenistic astrology, the 6th house did have a definition of servitude, of slavery. And so it's interesting to sort of have that topic in mind as we discuss further what's going on in Capricorn right now. On a global scale, less to do with the individual maybe, but more as like a collective thought, Capricorn can represent financial systems and power structures and authority figures. And so what we're kind of dealing with right now is the moments before Pluto will enter into Aquarius, away from Capricorn. It's worth noting because 248 years is a long time. That's how long Pluto takes to go one trip around the zodiac. And so as a generation, as a group of people alive at this moment, we're kind of specific because not everyone in history will have experienced what Pluto feels like in Capricorn, nor will they experience what Pluto feels like in Aquarius moving forward. And this 29-degree point of Capricorn, this last degree before tipping over into Aquarius, is one of the most important. It's kind of like the real final lesson before moving and progressing through the zodiac. So Pluto's been sitting on that 29-degree point for such a long time and has moved into Aquarius last year for a moment, moved back, will move into Aquarius on the 21st, so 10 days after this new moon, and then we'll move back on September the 1st. And so from September the 2nd, I should say, here in Australia, from September the 2nd into January of 2025, we'll be really, really focused and feeling those effects of Pluto in the final degree of Capricorn. Capricorn representing power structures, financial systems, and Pluto representing dissemination, disintegration, obliteration, clearing space, dragging things up from the underneath that need to be revealed, revelations of secrets kept. So this is what we've got to kind of work with as a sort of overarching feeling for 2024. We can see it already, and we've been seeing it for such a long time. And in fact, Pluto's influence in Capricorn, I'd suspect, would have had a part to play in the multiple standoffs with power over the globe over the last decades. I think really we can really feel it in our most recent history with the revelations around, maybe not everyone is so invested in, Hollywood as a structure as I was, being so involved in watching movies to escape. But there's definitely a fantasy that has been sold for some 100 years by that little town in Los Angeles that really revealed itself to be bloated on power and grossly disfigured by power. Pluto in Capricorn, I think, played a part in that. And it will continue to do so, because generations after us, the kids that are growing up now, the kids that are yet to be born, perhaps won't look to something that is so fake and pretend and aspirational as a guiding light anymore. It's a shame, because it's also an incredibly creative space. Separating the creativity of the art form to the reality of the power structures involved. That's just one example, perhaps, of Pluto in Capricorn that we can talk about. But this is sort of moving forward. There's more to come, isn't there? There are things, papers that are being unopened, court cases that are happening right now that we can look at to see Pluto in Capricorn and the effects of that. So, 6th house, servitude. 6th house, work ethic, repetition. On a very personal level, Leo rising, we can work with this moment. We can work with the new moon 10 days before Pluto leaves as a direct intention to really set up your sort of physical health, I would probably say as well. The 6th can definitely speak to our body. So I want you to sort of be in good working order as we move forward, because you'll need to be in tip-top condition to go through with what this year will bring for you. The sun and the moon at 20 degrees of Capricorn speaks to the 4 of Pentacles in the tarot. And so you can see there's a double-edged sword here that could look like someone who is hanging on to power, couldn't it? That is really sort of rigid and unwilling to let go of the power, turning their back on the culture behind them, the city behind them. That's a great pictorial of what we just spoke about. Another way to look at this would be the shape of the body. 2 feet on the ground, centered, really grounded, and ready to weather the storm. And this isn't to say that this year is going to be hectic. There's no point in trying to predict that. Let's be real. Let's be sort of 6th house Capricorn real about it. We're living through a very difficult period, and we're all doing our best to remain present and open to that reality, to do what we can to provide comfort to those that we love that need it, and to weather this together. Financial systems and inflation and folks losing out on the bottom line. It's getting tougher and tougher to just get the bills paid. All of this to be continued. So let's kind of use this energy of the 4 of Pentacles to sort of weather this. It will get better. Things will get better. But it's up to us to stand together and to keep our ears and eyes out for those in our circles that need support. I think that what I'm looking at here too is the sun and the moon at 20 degrees are forming a supportive aspect with Uranus in Taurus in your 10th house, your most public facing self, the place that's been really working with a bit of a revolution over the past years, the place that's sort of really ready to rebel. Uranus, the planet, will station direct on the 24th of January. So there'll be an extra insurgence of the rebel. You might be more visibly rebellious. You might be standing up for things and using your voice in ways that feels revolutionary. It's really good to keep 2 feet on the ground in reality as you do so, Leo rising. It's really good to absolutely work with the encouragement of these energies, but make sure that your sense of grounding and purpose in the physical space is in check. Because, let us not divide and separate and divide and separate and divide and separate, because that's what Cancer does. The infection, not the sign. Let's keep ourselves in connection with those around us, I guess is what I'm trying to say, Leo rising. I'm going to get you some tarot. Yeah, I'm getting my head around what's before us, and I'm trying to figure out the best ways in which to be of best help in the way that I describe it too, because I don't want to wear tinfoil on my head and all of that kind of stuff. I refuse to look away from the reality of the current situation. I'm going to definitely deal in fact, but also hopefully provide you with a bit of optimism, a bit of comfort too. So let's see what tarot has to say further to what I'm describing. Okay. Yep. So the defenses might be up. The 5 of Wands is one of your cards, Leo rising, and so there is something about kind of magnetism and magic, but also a sort of like, almost it feels like having to prove one's worth and sort of shooting barbs here and shooting barbs there, and kind of feeling like, maybe not feeling it attacked, but definitely feeling that you need to prove yourself is probably the easiest way to say it. You're in company with someone who kind of knows better than you at all, but there's someone here that knows what they're doing as far as harnessing their magic, finessing their magic. So think about your elders, think about the folks that you admire, your mentors is probably a great word to use. Think about who you can lean on moving forward, because your 10th house is really in focus at present. So your public facing life, in this, perhaps this agitation sometimes of feeling put upon, or feeling sort of that you're being attacked, then look to your mentors to see how they worked with those circumstances too. So like if there was tension, how they worked through it. Perhaps, I don't know, like even in this kind of world, like if this is something that you're interested in as far as reading the sky and stuff, I listen, it's what I'm addicted to. I'd listen to as many people as I possibly can to try and absorb as much information as I can. And it's really fascinating to sit at the feet of astrologers, we'll say, that were active in the 70s and sort of really working with this language and really sort of refining it into the words and language that we use now. The 70s, there was a huge boom in the popularity of astrology. And so when dealing with a tense and harsh reality in life, and to try and find the right words to describe that through astrology, I do look to my elders and I look to how they weave their magic and tell their tales. When it comes to tarot, I've got my mentors there as well. And again, it's sort of like working with folks that you admire and that you wish to learn from and grow with, you know. But I got the star, so this is the most magical card in the whole deck. It speaks a lot to your seventh house of your beloveds, your relationships, your intimate partnerships and connections there. It speaks to Aquarius in the way of Pluto entering into Aquarius. And so if we can allow Pluto to enter into Aquarius this time, and if we can work with this feeling that the star is emanating, this alien being that's sent to planet Earth to move love and life for all of us thirsty, thirsty human beings that need love and need hope and need protection and understanding, then I think that that's just such a lovely emblem. And I think if we can reframe our thoughts about that too, what am I trying to say? It's kind of like, I'm not like a love and light hippie. I can't, it's just not in me. I tried for a while when I was in my 20s and I just didn't work. I tend to believe that I would never, forgive me. This work is powerful and beautiful when we incorporate the shadow. We've got to do our shadow work, all of that stuff, and there's definitely a sort of deflection away from the shadow in order to find the light. In some languages of spirituality, the shadow is showing itself to us right now. As human beings, we know that we've taken too much advantage of the natural resources around us. We know that war is waged for profit. All of these things are really revealing themselves. That's shadow work. So we've got to work with that information rather than sticking our fingers in our ears and loving and hoping in tandem with a bit of love and hope as well, a bit of kindness for our fellow humans. But keep the star in mind when you're thinking about connection to Leo Rising. Really think about this beautiful card and think about what it represents and think about the possibilities of that. Shine as bright as you are, and in your relationships you'll find the star. And together we can make tracks to heal this thing. That's your reading, honey. I hope that was all right. If you're still here with me, put a goat in the comments, please. I would love it. You can subscribe to my horoscopes over at buymeacoffee.com/UmaRuby. You can also throw some money in the tip jar there for me. If I've not read your birth chart before, do head to umaruby.com and I'll draw you one up and you can book a session with me and I'll read your astrology. If I have read for you before and you'd like another one, head over to Uma Ruby and you can book yourself a femme, a truth, a love, a growth, or a magic reading. And we'll talk about the transits coming up for this year, specifically in relationship to your birth chart. And we'll really get stuck into the tarot as well. I've designed some beautiful spreads that are working like a charm and really revealing some great emblems of hope. Take it easy, Leo Rising. I'll speak to you in 2 weeks and we're going to have a great big chat about a full moon in your first house. So spotlight on you, honey bunny. I look forward to it. Take it easy. Hello, Sagittarius Rising. Happy New Year. And welcome to your horoscope for the Capricorn new moon happening on January the 11th at 10:58 p.m. if you're in the Southern Hemisphere with me. So I hope that the entry into the new calendar year was gentle enough for you, Sagittarius Rising. If it is taking you a little bit longer to get your motor started, then you can always look to the Lunar New Year that the Chinese calendar celebrates on the 10th of February this year. And you can also look to the Zodiacal New Year at the Aries new moon in April. However, that will be an eclipse, so hopefully we'll have our act together by then. When we think about Capricorn, the sign, we think about someone who's incredibly strident, committed, convinced, and we think about someone who can really make things happen, that can really grow. At a time when we're kind of living through the after effects of growth at all costs or wealth at all costs, we can really feel kind of out of step with the personality of Capricorn. We can see that that kind of absolute conviction to growing is quite damaging to everything else around it. And I think that probably there's a lot of sense of like the ramifications of greed that we can all feel right now as well. And it's been growing in size, obviously, as the decades go by. But this point in time really feels like a pivotal sort of crescendo, doesn't it? We know that things cannot go on the way that they were any longer. We know that systems do need to change, and those systems also need to provide alternatives for the folks that are like the workhorses of those systems. We can't just put people out of work. We need to find alternative routes for growing personal wealth. But the idea of growing wealth needs to change its definition too, doesn't it? I think that there's something around, a lot of folks that I've been speaking to are sort of like, I've been working just as hard, if not harder. I'm earning the same money, but my money is worth less. That's one example of sort of the constructs of a global financial system being unquantifiable in an individual mind. It's sort of like, so who's bearing the brunt of this pressure? It's the working classes that always will. All of these topics are coming to the forefront of our mind, aren't they? Sagittarius Rising. We can probably look to Capricorn for the reason why. The planet Pluto, the significator of destruction, of disintegration, of power, and of also revelation, of revealing things that have been hidden, displaying them out for everyone to see. Capricorn is sitting at 29 degrees. Pluto is sitting at 29 degrees of Capricorn, the pivotal final point of the sign. And they're about to enter into Aquarius 10 days after this new moon. Now, we felt this last year when this happened, and then Pluto regressed back into Capricorn. That's going to happen again this year. So in September the 2nd, Pluto will be retrograde and back into Capricorn again. And then from January 2025, we'll be experiencing Pluto in Aquarius full time for the next 20 years. But this handover and this sort of jumping back and forth between the signs, one sign that represents the power of the mind and the people and of community in ingenuity, and the other sign, Capricorn, that traditionally on a global scale represents financial systems, power structures, all of these things that we're sort of reading about just even really recently in the paper, of more documents being revealed, more abuses of power being shown. In the courts are having a time of it right now with all of these different revelations of the abuses of power. Historically, up to this very point, we look around and we see there's so many world leaders are absolutely actively abusing their power to subjugate the people underneath them. As a culture, we realize this and we can't look away from it. We can't stuff that under the couch and never look at it again. So it's setting us up for something, isn't it? Sagittarius Rising, it's setting us up for collective action and for a revolution, a revolt that is arm in arm. So many attempts to divide and separate the people, and that's how control is successful, by division and separation. Historically, we just don't have to look very far to realize that. But if we stand together, and if we do really believe that growth at all costs is untenable, that wealth at all costs is untenable, that inflated wealth and purported success is undesirable. And if we can teach our children that that kind of excess is undesirable, then this is how progress is made. There's no going back to greed is good like it was in the 1980s. Cannot be. There's obviously still examples of that around, but they're becoming vastly like caricatures. We're having this big chat, Sagittarius rising, because Capricorn does rule your second house, which is your access to resources, your wealth, and your values, what you value in life, and how you put your resources to their best effect. So at a new moon, that's a night of setting intent, and to set the intention around the topic of your resources, around how you wish to grow them, and how you're going to put them to best use, is the perfect thing to speak about at this new moon. I think that I would definitely want to encourage you that it's not anything to be ashamed of, to want for enough, to have enough food in the fridge, a beautiful roof over your head, spare to spread around. But if you're measuring yourself against a yardstick that is like, well, I should be here at this point in my life, or at this age I thought that I would have this, and rapidly it's the curtains dropped, I can see that that's not going to be a reality for me, and that's the sort of systemic problem. That's not so much about my work ethic. These are topics that we'll continue to delve into, and probably some topics that will have the people rise. It's frustrating to think, though, there's definitely moments and opportunities for the people to rise in the very recent past in which they have not. But when it comes to their back pocket, they often will. Money is an invention, Sagittarius rising. It's definitely not any evidence of what you're worth by any means. Now, Venus is also in your first house, sitting there at 15 degrees, Venus in Sagittarius. Stunning. I actually have Venus in Sagittarius on my birth chart. And Venus at 15 degrees is in a very supportive trine, fire sign to fire sign, with Chiron in Aries in your fifth house of your creativity, your self-expression. You remember the last horoscope in Cancer, we spoke in length about that. We know that the dragon is there in your fifth house and will be for the next year, and so there will be an urgency towards your fifth house. In another horoscope, I was sort of talking about pleasure activism too. That's something that can definitely be talked about in the fifth house during a time of such friction and tension. Pleasure as activism is something you can learn about if you wanted to know more. But it's a philosophy that some of the greats stood by in order to get our rights as queer people. There was a great many artists in the 70s and 80s that was pleasure as activism, as a standoff to the attempted subjugation of a minority group in order to control them. All of these topics are sort of coming up because Pluto is hovering and about to tick over into Aquarius. This is the year that these conversations will blow apart. More and more and more and more people are realizing this. Pluto in Capricorn brought with it the Me Too movement, the Black Lives Matter movement, all of these actions of people standing up and not taking it any longer. It also brought around a great many people in power using their language to subjugate. Conservatism in popular government rising, and democratic societies becoming something more like totalitarianism. This is something to be pushed back against. So let's get you some tarot, Sagittarius rising. I want you to feel the kind of sensuality of Venus in your first house at this new moon as well, and that encouragement towards your... Sorry, I'm just flipping some over. What have I done? Oh, it's a mess. Excuse me, I was just shuffling and there was like... Tralala, I'll edit that out. I want you to feel the sensuality of Venus in your first house. I want you to feel the encouragement towards your creative self-expression. I think that it's probably easy and maybe tempting to pass off creative pursuits at this time as frivolous and unimportant. There's so many other things to worry about or to activate or to put our voices to. But if you don't make art, then if it stops, then everything stops. If creativity stops, everything stops. I think I said that before. I believe it to be really true. And I think that there's power in what you've got to say in your creative work. I think there's a lot of power in that. It's going to be textured and coloured with your philosophies on life and with your position in the world and with your standing up for the rights of others and for your own rights. But it's only from your perspective, you know. I'm the kind of person that if I don't create, I will perish. I learned that long ago. It's been tricky because, you know, we do know that that doesn't have a lot of attachment to to a wealth of resources. However, it does make you resourceful, and I think that that's really cool. You don't need much to have an awesome life, Sagittarius Rising. You need very little. As a matter of fact, we need far less than we think we do. When you're scraping the bottom of that barrel, you can keep your chin up. You can get your guitar out or get your paintbrushes out, whatever it is that you do to express yourself. There's power in that, massive power. And I think you can probably set down some of this anxiety around that too. It might have been sort of rolling over in your mind, sort of thinking, crap, you know, should I even... but I don't even have the energy for it. That could be something as well. So if that's the case, if you're just like, if your fuse is a bit sort of damp at the moment because you're just in overwhelm, that's fine, honey. You can take a rest. But I want you to know that it's sort of like there's... Everything starts with the first stroke. Everything starts with the first sentence. Very rarely does the first stroke or the first sentence get included in the thing, you know, but that's, you sort of build that momentum. If you've been sort of feeling that pain points, those tender spots with Chiron in the 5th house and still not feeling sort of able to feel inspired, I want you to know too that Venus right now is being sweet to Chiron, but also Mars later in the year is going to be like, right, okay, we're going to wrap this up. We're really focusing on Chiron a lot in the first 6 months of these horoscopes. There's a lot of exact conjunctions and aspects and points of note, especially around the eclipse in Aries. So we're going to chat about it a lot, and hopefully you can just use these readings, you know, once every 2 weeks. It's just a little pep talk. You know, work on it, work on your stuff, work on your thing. Just start. Doesn't matter if it's shit. There's someone that, I love this card. It says guidance at the top of it. It's the King of Pentacles, and the word guidance makes me like cry. Remember, I was looking at these cards with a friend of mine, kind of like baseball cards. I went over to his place, and he doesn't really know tarot very much, but like, he's a baseball player, loves baseball, and loves baseball cards. And so we just threw them all out on the table, and we're just like looking through them, you know, one by one. And this card came out, and he was like, "What's this one mean?" And I was like, "Oh, it's just like, I never had that." That's what I see when I think about this card. You can find this in the eyes of others, though. You can find that guidance, that encouragement from someone who is protecting you and is teaching you what life is for and what responsibility means as well. this kind of energy is really helpful in the second house. Some folks, some of us had to kind of go it alone and learn it alone. But what I see in these tarot cards, Sagittarius Rising, is there is someone out there that is willing to support, that is willing to sort of like teach you, show you the way as well, in whatever area of life that you need a little bit of extra support. This could be the second house, the values, could be in the creativity as well. Bit of guidance. That's nice. Thanks for being here with me, Sagittarius Rising. I appreciate it. Happy New Year. You can subscribe to my channel at buymeacoffee.com/UmaRuby for 10 Australian dollars a month. You can keep me going here in horoscope land if you can afford it. If you can't, don't worry, I'm doing it anyway. You can throw some money in the tip jar there too. You can also get your birth chart read by me. I draw them up and they look like that. And I'll read them to you over at umaruby.com, so you can book yourself a spirit reading there if you'd like. If you're still here with me, put a goat in the comments, please, in honor of Capricorn, in honor of that sort of like sometimes stubborn feeling that we have of like, fine, no, don't worry about it, I'll just go it alone. And that urgency of like relief that we feel when we've got someone to guide us. Take it easy. I'll speak to you at the Leo full moon in 2 weeks. Love you lot, Sagittarius.